Hello everybody, welcome back. So this time we're going to get started with a new organization. This is going to be Little Dresses for Africa. And the first project I'm going to do is, surprise, a little dress. Now this organization has been going strong for quite some time, and they have a fabulous website, which is littledressesforafrica.org. And on that website, there are three different dresses that they offer as examples. They do say you don't have to stick with these, but I think it's a good guide to go off of the types of things that are useful for them. They say don't use zippers because they're hard to fix in third world countries. They say don't make ties with ribbons, because it's not sturdy. They want sturdy dresses, but cute dresses. And a lot of times the dresses that these little girls are getting, this is the only article of clothing that is theirs. And so you really want to make sure that it's well made. It's not, lightly hand stitched. It's machine stitched and it's going to hold together. But with that being said, what they have is they have a little dress they call a pillowcase dress, which is basically a very simplistic dress that you make by cutting a pillowcase, and they have directions on their website for doing just that. I don't think I printed that one out, but it's a very simplistic dress. And if that's what you want to do, I'm not going to be demonstrating that one. It's on their website. They also have a t-shirt dress where you have a t-shirt and you basically sew a little ruffly skirt to it. I might do that one later, I'm not sure. The one that I am going to be sewing today is the one that they have on a download called Ms. Lillian's Dress Pattern. And it looks like this. And so I'll be going through creating it. Now the directions for this dress were actually written by Nancy 𝐸MAN, very beloved, miss her dearly, Nancy 𝐸MAN of Sewing with Nancy and all of that. I want to tell you a little bit more about Little Dresses from Africa. This is from Rachel O'Neill of Little Dresses for Africa. And she says that they are a charitable organization dedicated to improving the lives of children in remote villages of Africa through a variety of humanitarian efforts. While the primary focus is on distributing handmade dresses to young girls, the organization strives to address broader issues such as access to clean water, education, and community development. Our motto, "We're not just sending dresses, we're sending hope," encapsulates the far-reaching impact of our mission. Little Dresses for Africa began with a simple yet profound idea: to provide little girls in Africa with dresses made from pillowcases and fabric scraps. We use pillowcases because the hem and sides were already sewn, and even a novice seamstress could help. We have sent over 12.5 million dresses and shorts to 97 countries. This simple but powerful initiative has blossomed into a multifaceted mission aimed at creating sustainable development and building resilient communities. Our efforts are centered around 4 key pillars: dress distribution, clean water, education, and community development. The heart of Little Dresses for Africa lies in the distribution of beautifully crafted dresses to children in need. These dresses are sewn by volunteers from around the world, each stitch imbued with love and care. By providing these garments, we aim to instill a sense of dignity and self-worth in the young recipients. The dresses symbolize hope, showing the children that they are cherished and valued. Beyond the immediate joy of receiving a new dress, these garments serve practical purposes. In many cultures, wearing a dress signifies that a child is cared for, which can deter predators and boost the child's confidence, as well as keeping them in school. Moreover, the act of giving fosters a sense of global solidarity, reminding the children that they are not forgotten. Access to clean water is a fundamental human right. Yet many communities in Africa struggle with water scarcity and contamination. Little Dresses for Africa recognizes that without safe drinking water, health and well-being cannot be sustained. As such, we are committed to implementing clean water initiatives that transform lives. To date, we have installed 150 wells in remote villages of Malawi, Africa. Our clean water projects include the installation of water wells and the promotion of hygiene education. These efforts ensure that communities have access to reliable sources of potable water, reducing the incidence of waterborne diseases and improving overall health outcomes. In turn, this enables children to attend school regularly and communities to thrive. Education is a powerful tool for breaking the cycle of poverty. Little Dresses for Africa is dedicated to supporting the educational initiatives that empower children and provide them with the skills they need to build a better future. Through partnerships with local schools and organizations, we work to enhance educational opportunities and resources. Our educational programs include the construction of classrooms, the provision of school supplies, and the sponsorship of scholarships to deserving students. We also offer vocational training to equip young people with practical skills that can lead to gainful employment. By fostering a culture of learning, we help create a generation of informed and capable individuals who can drive positive change in their communities. Little Dresses for Africa is more than just a charitable organization. It is a beacon of hope for countless children and communities across Africa. Our mission, rooted in the simple act of sewing dresses, has grown to encompass clean water initiatives, educational support, and community development. Through these efforts, we strive to create a world where every child can thrive, every community can flourish. We're active on social media and encourage community involvement through Facebook. On Facebook, they are Little Dresses for Africa -main headquarters. Our website is littledressesforafrica.org, and donations can be made online. We invite you to join us in this journey of compassion and transformation. Together we can sow hope and build a brighter future for children of Africa. So before I actually get started making the dress, there isn't a pattern per se to print out and tape together. There's directions on how to draw one yourself. So I'll be tipping the camera down and showing you how I'm drawing out and making that pattern, because I want to make a paper pattern. That way it'll be easier to make several dresses at once. If I just draw it out on the fabric itself, I think in the long run it'll take me a lot more time than if I go through the time to make a paper pattern to use. So basically, for this pattern, they're saying that you need 1.25 yards of 40-inch cotton, or you can divide that up between a couple contrasting fabrics, if you want the sleeves one color and the bodice another color and everything. You're going to need 17 inches, or about 1/2 yard of 1/4-inch elastic, a package of 1/2 inch single fold coordinating bias tape. So if you don't have coordinating bias tape, I'm probably going to make my own with some fabric, unless I can find one. My ready-made bias tape stash is running low, so I'm not too sure if I have something to match the color of fabric I'm going to be using. And then on the bottom of the supply list, they write fuse and gather tape. Well, this tape, it's very difficult to find, and it's probably one that Nancy used to stock in her Nancy's Notions. If you remember getting the Nancy's Notion catalog like I do, I used to love that thing. But I just did a quick search on like the 𝐥𝐤𝐞 catalog and things like that. I couldn't find it anymore. It's basically just a fusible tape that you then pull strings and it gathers. So I'm just going to gather it normally, but if you see that on the instruction sheet, we're just going to gather normally. Actually, I have a special thing I might show you. But anyway, let me clear off my table, get my paper over here. I'm just going to get that big old art paper that I usually use that's 18 inches wide, and we'll get started drawing out the pattern. Okay, so the first part we're going to do is the dress body front and back, so the same piece as the front and the back of the dress. So we're going to start out with a rectangle that is 10 inches by 19 inches. And I'm going to try to do this with a Sharpie so that everyone can see a little bit better. So putting my ruler here, using this edge, I'm going to draw a line 10 inches out to right here, okay? And then coming down, I need to see where 19 inches is, which is right here. Okay. Let me draw that out a little bit more. Okay, so that's 10 inches there, and then I'm just going to connect them up here. That looks pretty straight. Okay, so step one, we've drawn our rectangle. Mark the left 19-inch long side, place on fold. Okay, so I'm going to do the international symbol for place on fold. Okay, mark the neck opening 5 1/4 inches from the fold. So I know my ruler is, I need to get a new ruler someday. I have had this thing since I was like 18 years old. Anyway, 5 1/4 inches. I need to get a new one, yes. So there's that. Then I need to measure up the side seam 14 inches from the bottom, which is right here. Okay, and then it says, connect them and add a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so first I'm going to draw, I'm actually going to do this with a pencil because it's not going to be my main cutting line. That's going to be the sewing line in pencil, but for my cutting line, I'm going to do it with my fat marker so I can remember it. Putting that pencil line 1/4 inch in, there's my cutting line, okay? And I need to write cut to unfold. I'm going to put dress front and back. Okay, so let me get this cut out and then we'll move on to the sleeve piece. Okay, so technically the next thing to draw according to the instructions is the sleeve piece. I'm going to skip that for right now and do the ruffle piece just because this isn't quite wide enough for the sleeve, and while I have this scrap here, I want to use it. So they say to make a rectangle that is 5 inches by 10 inches. So here's 10 inches on my ruler. So you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and draw that line. I'm going to square it up here. Okay, so there's the one side of it. Putting my very worn out ruler over here. My ruler is 6 inches wide, so I'm going to bump it in like that and draw around it. So this is going to be a ruffle and cut to unfold. So I'm going to draw my little, put fold here, and I'm going to write ruffle, to unfold. That doesn't seem like a very full ruffle, but I guess it is. And I guess if I wanted my ruffle to be fuller, I could do that. I don't think that there's a rule against it. Okay, so let me get this cut out. Okay, so now on to making the sleeve piece, and it says we need to start out with a rectangle 8 1/4 by 9 inches. Well, this isn't completely square here, so let me just draw a line there to get it started. That's longer than I need, but we get the idea. Okay, so if I make this the 9 inches point, which is going to put me right here. That looks pretty good. Just go across. I know that's 6 inches. And if I need this to be 8 1/4, it said? Yes. Okay, so there's 8 1/4. There's that part. And coming over here, that part. Okay, now it says mark mark the top and the edge 4 1/4 inches from the corner. So I'm just going to pick this corner here to be the one that I'm dealing with. So let me move, actually, let me cut it off of the roll here really quick. Hi there, so I'm editing this video, and where I am right now, drawing a diagonal line on this sleeve piece. Later on, I realized that that diagonal I drew did not quite fit the diagonal that is on the bodice. And I will make that adjustment later. I'm just letting you know right now, you want to make sure that that diagonal is the same length as the one you did on the bodice. And there is a chance that I put it on the wrong corner. Now that I'm watching my video, I might have put it on the wrong corner. But whatever the reason is, before you start cutting your things out, I just wanted to point out to make that adjustment. Okay, back to the video. Just getting this big roll out so it can be nice and flat here. All right, so 4 1/4 inches. Coming in this way, I'm going to put a little mark here, and 4 1/4 inches here is there. All right, and I believe we're going to do the same thing, yes, where I'm going to connect these two, which is going to be my stitching line here, and then it says bump out a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And so that is my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And this is going to be cut on fold over here. Okay, so I want this to be my fold. And I'm going to write sleeve, cut to unfold. Okay, let's cut this cut out here, and I think we'll be ready to go ahead and cut out the fabric. Before I do, what I want to try is to see if these two are going to match up. Well, kind of, sort of. Not exactly, but pretty close. Let me get my fabric. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I might do a combination of a couple fun things. I want something colorful and exciting. So let me get that strategized and get my little pattern cut out. Okay, so this is my fabric. I'm going to do one fabric for everything here. And what the instructions want you to do is open it up completely, move things out of the way here, and fold each selvage edge into the middle. That looks pretty close to me there, and I'm doing the same thing. I know you can't see it, but having it come in and meet this selvage edge in the middle here, okay? And then it says fold it over so that these fold lines here are going to match up exactly. All right, so let me get that. I'm just going to shake it out here. Okay, because that double fold, that's the fold line we're going to be lining up all of the pieces on. So you only need to cut things out at one time. So making sure I don't have bubbles and ridges and things in there. So let me see if I can do this the same way they do. It looks like you have your main dress one first. This is my fold over here. So I'm going to pop that on here and here. And because this is kind of thick paper and everything, I am just going to clip it on for right now, like that. Okay, so that is my first piece. And then coming down below it, on their little diagram, they have the sleeves coming next. Okay, so again, I want to make sure these folds are lining up as closely as I can, and put my sleeve pieces on here. And again, I'm just going to clip over here. Okay. And then the last piece is going to be the ruffle. And we're going to be cutting, here's where the fullness comes in. Okay, it says cut 2 on fold, but really we're going to be cutting 4 on fold, so I need to scratch that out and put a 4 because look, they have it on here twice. Okay, so make sure that's not a rip, it's just a thread. So I'm going to cut one out here and then move my pattern piece and cut another one there. Okay, so let me go ahead, get all of these cut out, and I will be back very soon. Okay, so I'm going rogue already, and if we're doing 2 sets that are going to be sewn together, I don't understand why waste 2 inches of ruffle fabric. So instead, what I am going to do is look for my ruler here, and I am just going to cut basically two 5-inch strips. So if this is 5 inches right here, and I'm holding this backwards, but I'm going to cut a strip here, move my ruler, and cut another strip. So I end up with 2 strips that are 5 inches tall and the entire width of my fabric, so 44 inches wide, instead of doing 4 of these and sewing them together, if that makes any sense. And after I had that done, I actually ended up with a strip that was about another 5 inches. So I'm guessing if you do the 1 1/4 version, or a 1 1/4 version that they are offering, if you wanted to make your dress slightly longer, you could make it probably up to 2 inches longer and barely have enough fabric. So just letting you know that was included in the measurement. Okay, so here are my pieces. And the first thing on the back side, well, mine the back side, on the second page of the instructions, after we've cut it out, they're going to want us to hem the sleeves first. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I had to go let the horses out of the barn, and we're in the middle of a snowstorm, so you know that's fun. Okay, what was giving me pause before is it looked like they just wanted you to sew these together, or hem it and then sew them together. And this is a woven cotton fabric. And if you've seen me for a while, you know that I love to serge around my raw edges, especially of a fabric that can fray. And yes, this is a fairly tightly woven calico, but still I want to be extra safe. So before I actually get to their first step, which is to hem my sleeve pieces, I am going to go over to my serger and serge all the way around each piece, just the very edge. I'm going to do my best not to cut off fabric so that it will stay the original size. Okay, so I am over here at my serger. Hang on, let me turn that light off so we don't get a seizure. And I wanted to show you how I serge so that I don't cut off fabric at the corners. So basically, you know, just 1980s vintage. Oh, I can't turn on my serger without the light. Wait, maybe I can. Yes, I can. Okay, so I'm going to come up until, what I'm looking for is I want the point where my needle is just past the edge of the fabric. Okay, so one more stitch right there. My needle is past the fabric. I'm going to raise my needle up, lift the presser foot, turn the entire thing, put it back down. Okay, same thing, even though this isn't like a 90-degree angle, I'm going to do the same thing. I go until my needle is just past the edge of the fabric, raise the needle up, turn it, and come down. And that way I can still keep my nice sharp corners, I don't have loose threads, everything is nice and neat. And I'm never going to have to worry about this fraying. Okay, so the instructions want you to turn this up 3/4 of an inch and press it. And this actually has to be exactly the same on either side since we're going to be sewing it together later. So just to make my life easier, the way I'm going to make sure that I have a 3/4 inch hem at the very edges is 2 times 3/4 of an inch is 1.5 inches. Okay, this is the wrong side of my fabric here. So I just drew a line across with my heat erasable pen. See the little red line there? At 1.5 inches. So then, if I turn up my raw edge and it just barely hits that red line, I know that I am doing exactly right. And it's going to go along pretty fast. Okay, so whatever I do here, I'm going to do to the other sleeve, obviously. So once you have that pressed up, they want you to make a narrow hem, so go ahead and tuck that raw edge down on the inside, and you're going to end up with a narrow hem that is about 3/8 of an inch deep. Come on, fold for me here. Okay, so now that that is pressed all the way across, I can come back and edge stitch it right along this edge here to lock that in. I need to change to a blue thread in my sewing machine. Let me get that done on both of these sleeves and I'll be back at the table. Okay, so I've got my stitching in there. If you can see, just regular. If anything fancy happens at the sewing machine, I'll move the camera over there, but you know, straight stitch is not that exciting. So the next thing we're going to be doing is sewing the sleeves onto this dress, but just like the sleeves, I'm going to take these 2 pieces over and serge around the entire piece first and then give it a nice quick press because it is a bit wrinkled in here, and then I'll come back and we can get the sleeves attached. Okay, so I've got my front and back pieces pressed and serged, so I'm going to grab a sleeve piece. And what I do here, we're going to do all the way around, of course. So I'm going to match it up. And what they are saying is to leave the bottom 1/4 inch open. You see how my sleeve piece looks like it's much narrower in here? I don't think it's the end of the world, honestly. I'm going to ease it in. And I'm going to make a note on my dress piece here, or actually my sleeve piece, to change this so that they match. So just really quick over here. See how that is so different? Anyhow, what I'm going to do is move my sleeve piece so it's the same position up at top here, and rock it out like that. Okay. And I will get my ruler. I will double check my measurements just to make sure that I didn't do something wrong here. But to me, I don't see how that's supposed to match up. So if I match it up here at the top, okay, and then come down here and rock it out so that that sewing line matches right there, and I can see underneath where that cutting line is, which is right here. Okay, and that is, if I measure, about 1 1/8 inches from this edge, okay, if I make this my new cutting line here, that's going to match up really well. And my little bottom of my sleeve is just going to be a little bit shorter, but that's okay. So the next time I cut one of these out, that's going to be my change, okay? So I would say where they had, you know what, I want to get their instructions just to double check really quick and make sure that I didn't do something wrong. No? They say 4 1/4 inches, so anyhow, that's what I'm doing. I don't think that it's going to hurt anything. The dress is still going to come out looking like it should, but taking this piece off, definitely a good call. I'll try to make a note of that earlier in the video, okay? So anyhow, going back here to where I was, getting my right side up of this piece, and I'm going to get my top of my sleeve matching, just like I did on my pattern alteration over there, okay? And I'm going to pin that. And because there's such a difference here, basically what I did on my pattern, I'm just going to do here in real life. So I'm going to move this over until the sewing line, which is about 1/4 inch in, matches up with the fabric, which is right here. And I'm going to flip it over so you can see what I'm talking about, because on this side it doesn't look different. Okay, so on this side I have that peeking out. Just my way of fixing things. The next time I do this, I won't have to do that, okay? But on all of my pieces, when I go to sew it, they do say on their instructions to leave the bottom 1/4 inch open. So let's say, here's my marking pen. This is the bottom, this is the top, wait. This is the top up here, this is the bottom. I'm going to make a little red mark about 1/4 inch in, so that as I'm sewing down this way here, I'll know where to stop, okay? And after I get this sewed, I'll probably trim that off, you know, but let's just get through one issue at a time here. So for all 4 of these seams, I'm going to go ahead and pin it. I'm going to pin this one offset. Next time it's going to match, and hopefully yours matches too. Get them all pinned on and sew this at 1/4 inch seam allowance, because that's what they were having us mark earlier. Okay, so I've got that done. I've decided not to trim it. I just press all of these seam allowances open at this point. So when I fold it in half, you know, imagine there is elastic through there and everything. This is the front of the dress, and there is the ruffle that's going to be down here at the bottom. Now, you can customize yours however you want, and since I have this extra little bit of fabric, I think what I'm going to do is make a couple little pockets for the front, just little square patch pockets. I've got some lace I can put at the top of it. I just think, you know, a little something fun. So I'm going to cut 2 big squares from this. Well, big, you know, is very relative. About a 5 inch by 5 inch square. Get that pressed, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my 2 little squares here. And what I'm going to do is fold it up, again, 3/4 of an inch, just like I did before. Press it, tuck that in, and just like I hemmed the sleeves, put a little line of stitching across the top on both of my pockets. Okay, so now that I have that stitched on, I'm going to get a little piece of my lace, nothing terribly extravagant, and I'm just going to get a piece the right size to go all the way across, and once again just machine stitch it down. I'll probably leave about 1/4 inch of space at the top. You know, I'm just going to stitch across the top of this, and then that's going to look nice and pretty. Once I have that stitched, I'm going to come in and from the back side just turn and press my corners in about 3/8 of an inch on the remaining 3 sides. Okay, so I've got my little pockets, here we go, pressed in, and now I need to place them. Now, understanding that there is going to be a ruffle skirt down here sewed on, I'm thinking somewhere around there is going to be good. So just so I can get them even, put my ruler up here. Right here is 4 inches from the bottom. I'm actually going to bump it up and do 5 inches from the bottom. Here, get my heat erasable pen again, and yes, I'm drawing on the right side. I know it's going to come off of this fabric. You know, if you are unsure of how a heat erasable pen will react to your fabric, test it out first, okay? So then I'm thinking, let's bump it in about 3 inches from the outside. So I'm just gonna come over here, that's 3 inches in, and where that bottom mark is, I'm just drawing a little bit of a line going up and down. So I have a starting point, okay? So I have a starting point here and here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place these on, put a couple pins to hold them in place, and go back to my sewing machine, and I'm just gonna edge stitch them, you know, reinforcing the tacks at the top, down, over, and back up, and reinforcing it up here. And I think that that's going to make it fun. You know, who doesn't like to have pockets in their dress? Honestly, everyone deserves to have pockets. Doesn't matter where you are. So let me run over to my machine and get these put on. Okay, so I am over here on my girl Rosie. Let's see if that helps. And, you know, she's very strong, but she does not have reverse. So I just wanted to show you on a machine like this. I can come up a few stitches, lift the presser foot, move it back, do it again, maybe do it 3 times. And that's going to put a lot of extra stitching up here at the top, so it's not going to want to pull away, you know, when things are popped into place. And then I am using a narrow foot, and I'm just going to follow that down the edge, get down to the corner, leave the needle down, lift the presser foot up, turn everything, and put it back down. Come over here, needle down, presser foot up, turn it, pull this out, and hold my pocket down. Come all the way up to the top, and I'm going to do the same thing. Get to the end, pull my needle up, back it up, maybe a 1/4 inch, go a couple more stitches. Whoopsie, got a little excited there. And do it a 3rd time. And that's going to give me plenty so that it's going to be nice and strong up there at the top. Okay, so don't know if you can see, there's all my little reinforcement. Okay, so the next part of this is to put the bias tape binding around the neck. And looking through my stash, I don't have the exact one that they call for, but I do have this, which is 2 inch wide, very wide. And it is a single fold right now, it's folded in on each side. So what I'm going to do, so it'll be very similar to what they're asking for, is I'm going to cut this in half, okay? So what I need to do is fold it in half like this, press it so I have a nice crease down there, and then just cut it all the way down the crease, and I'll end up with 2 different lengths of this, and I should have enough to do several dresses, which I do plan on making. So let me get all that done. If you have the appropriate one that they're calling for, which is 1/2 inch ready-made single fold, then you're already a step ahead of me. You know, I'm cutting this, and I was just thinking that I'd turn on the camera and just think out loud with you, because sometimes, especially if you love a very solitary hobby, you can feel very isolated. But at the same time, if you're paying attention to, you know, what the news channels want you to pay attention to, it's easy to get upset or disgusted or frustrated with the, you know, world as it is sometimes. And what I would tell myself is that doing things like this gives me a very real way that me sitting here alone on my farm in the middle of nowhere in a blizzard cutting bias tape is going to make the world a little bit better. You know, it's a very psychologically and emotionally uplifting thing in the middle of a world that just seems bizarre, you know. So if if you can understand, or if you can feel the same way or know what I'm talking about, let me know, because, you know, I think that it's a just a way to keep your sanity in crazy times, doing something good for somebody else who's really going to appreciate it. So if we can do it by doing something we love too, well, win-win. You know what I mean? Win-win. Now, back on bias tape, if you have the right bias tape, when you get it out of the package, it should be flat with 2 little folds on each side like that, okay? You're going to have to unfold one side to get started, so I'm kind of ahead of the game here with only having one side folded in at this point, so just letting you know. All right, so I'm going to find the center back here. Now here's another thing. In the instructions, they're going to want you to sew this right sides together to start with. And if you want to do that, perfectly fine, you know, more power to you. I am going to sew it to the wrong side first, all right? So finding my center back, and for me, my center back does not have a pocket. I'm going to place it so that as I'm sewing, okay, the raw edge of my bias tape, you know, pretend it was previously folded and I've unfolded it. This raw edge is going to be right along the same edge as my raw edge of my fabric. Now, before I actually sew it, I need to take this edge here and turn it in about 1/4 inch or so, okay? I'm going to place that right around the center back and stick a pin there just to hold it in place. Now, I'm not actually going to pin all this on right now. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and just start sewing. And I'm going to be stitching this on about 1/4 inch in, okay, all the way along. When I get to a corner like this, instead of tugging and trying to turn this tape that way, I'd suggest opening this up so you have more of a straight line to sew on. It's going to make a fold. Just push that fold out of the way. Seam allowance should be pressed open, and then just keep going this way. I'll see if I can get a shot of that on my camera. But again, I'm sewing it to the wrong side of my fabric with the little fold of the tape facing up. Okay, so I've gone most of the way around, and I want to show you how I do this. Placing my binding tape level with the edge here. I'm going to go up until I get to probably right here, just before that corner seam. And again, this is only about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, maybe one more stitch. Now, leaving the needle down, I'm going to lift the presser foot up, move all of this stuff over here out of the way. It's going to want to make up a little fold over here. Just let it. It's not going to hurt anything. Try to get this fairly flat here. Put the foot back down and keep going straight. Now, this is the point I started where I folded that end. Okay, I'm just going to go straight over it. And overlap it maybe, you know, a little less than 1 inch. And, okay, one little reinforcement back stitch there. So, then this is what it's going to look like when I open it up and I place it over the front. I believe this is acting as a casing also for that 1/4 inch elastic, and I just thought it would be nice to have it visible on the outside, kind of like a little extra, you know, design detail. All right, my mistake here, I just read the instructions, and actually they do not want you to overlap it. So I'm going to back out this last little 3/4 of an inch of stitches or so. And basically what they want you to do is make it so that the 2 edges are just meeting like this, okay? So there is that beginning part where it's folded over, and then they want you to have this part where it's folded over. And I'm thinking that is so that it'll be easy to slide the elastic through. Okay, so I'm going to trim this little bit right here and press that down, and I have my stitches holding that at that point. Okay, but this part down here is open and folded. I don't know why that's not focusing there. There you go. Okay, so I've got that pressed. So now I'm going to open mine up. And again, mine is totally reversed from what they're calling for. What they want is for the bias tape only to be visible on the inside. I wanted mine on the outside. Potato, patata, you know, it's, you do what makes you happy. So at this point, I'm going to fold it down so that I have my little bias tape with a nice little edge here, okay? And I'm going to need to do that all the way around because it is bias. It should stretch over these corners. Once I have it pressed, after it's pinned and everything, I'll press it, and then I'm going to come back and edge stitch it. If you're pinning it and you do get like a little bit of a wrinkle or something here and there, or especially in the corners, sometimes, you know, when you're got that shape that we do, it's going to want to put a tiny wrinkle in there or something. That's okay, because ultimately this is going to have elastic in it and it's going to be all gathered up and puckery all the way around. So having a little wrinkle right there right now doesn't matter at all. Okay, so I've got that stitched on, and when you're top stitching it or edge stitching it, kind of the same thing as I said when you're putting the bias tape on. When you get to those corners, it makes it a lot easier if you open it up straight, so you can just keep going straight down. But anyway, in the instructions, they don't want you to actually put the elastic in until later. But while I'm working on it, I'm really curious to see how it's going to look, so I'm going to go ahead and do it now. So I'm going to cut my 17-inch elastic, which is what they call for in 1/4 inch. Okay, now usually I use my bodkin. I'm not sure if it's going to fit into that tiny little casing, so I'm going to give it a shot here. Find my opening, here it is. Yeah, it's going to fit just fine. Okay, so I'm going to pull my elastic all the way around. Doing it like this with the small 1/4 inch seam allowances makes it much less bulky on the inside. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just put a straight pin here to hold this elastic so it's not going to, you know, pop inside and disappear, and work my way all the way around. Okay, so bring it out here. It says, looking at the wrong side here, I'm guessing just stitch it together. Yeah, so I've got this side coming out. It's not bunched up evenly yet. I'm not going to do that until after I sew these two together. They're pretty small, so I'm just going to overlap them, and with a needle and thread just stitch them together. I am probably overlapping it by about 1/2 inch here. And I was looking at all of this blue bias tape I have, and I have some blue and white, like gingham kind of check fabric. And I think I have enough in that to do maybe 4 dresses, maybe. So I'm probably going to throw that in my washing machine to pre-wash. It's a good idea to pre-wash and dry all of your fabrics here. And get those made up off camera too, since I've, you know, worked out all of my issues on this first one here. The others should go a lot faster. All right, so that is stitched together. Let me just do a couple more stitches in place and one sideways to lock it in. Cut that, put in my little pin cushion, and now I should be able to just open this up, stretch it out, distribute the gathers evenly. And where this is in the very back, it looks like it wants to pooch open a bit. I might just put a couple little invisible stitches over that opening just to hold it. But this is my front here. with the little lace pockets, and so I think that's pretty cute. All right, what I need to do now is sew my sides together. So let me put it back right side out one more time. And what I do on this side, of course, I will do to the other also. So I'm going to start here at the little sleeve, matching that up so the fold is nice and even at the hem. And then come over here, and you're supposed to leave the bottom 1/4 inch of this seam open, and on this particular one I didn't, so I'm going to have to come back and reinforce that. But you can open it up a little easier if it's open like that, okay? So I'm going to pin it together all the way down to the bottom edge right here. This entire thing is going to get stitched at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You know, reinforce both edges. Down here, when you're done, you're going to press this seam allowance open all the way up. So using a sleeve rule, pressing hand, whatever kind of thing you have will make life easier at this point to press these side seams and this little sleeve here open. And be aware when you're pressing it of what this looks like right here where everything is coming together. You know, if you left that part open and you didn't get your stitches exactly right, there might be an opening showing. I'm kind of pulling apart just to make sure I'm good here. But if you pull apart and you see daylight through there, go ahead right now and either reinforce it, open it up and reinforce it in your sewing machine or with a needle and thread or something, because you don't want to leave that part being a weak point. All right, so here's my cute little top part of my dress. You know, plenty of room to pull ahead through and everything. Now for the bottom part, there is this ruffle, and if you remember, I cut it out of 2 long strips, okay? So what I'm going to do first is sew my 2 long strips together to make a big circle. So putting them right sides together, and I still have the selvages on, so I need to iron this. I'm just going to stitch them inside the printed part, press these seam allowances open, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got it, one big loopy circle here. I've got my seam allowances pressed open, and before we do anything, I need to make a narrow hem. They say a 1/4 inch up and then another 1/4 inch, and that looks good to me, so I'm just going to kind of go around and do that. Get some pins over here. Stick a pin, you know, every 18 inches or so just to hold it in place, and then I'm going to come back and edge stitch right along this edge here, all the way around my big ruffle. Okay, so once I got it hemmed, you can see my little stitching there. My seam allowances are pressed open. I went ahead and I serged across the top, because this whole thing has to be gathered. And if you don't serge it first or finish it off somehow, when you gather it, threads are going to come everywhere. So what I would do if I'm not using the thing I'm going to show you in a minute is to run 2 rows of gathering threads and pull them. And this is a fairly long piece to be gathered, so I would put a heavier thread into your bobbin and pull those bobbin threads, because then you'll be really sure that they're not going to pop on you halfway through gathering them. So if I lay this ruffle down, let's see if I can raise you up so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's the bottom of my little dress. And if I lay my ruffle down here right next to it, you know, it's doubled at this point, and so is the dress. You can see that this ruffle is just over twice the width of the dress. And if I had cut it the way they wanted to, it would probably be exactly twice the width of the dress. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to show you the machine I'm going to use. A friend of mine gave it to me, and I think it's pretty cool. And if I'm going to be making several of these, then I'm going to use it. Basically, do you know the little ruffling adapters or attachments that you can get for sewing machines that look like little robots? Well, let me go grab one. I'll show you. Okay, one of these guys that bolts onto your presser bar and goes up and down and makes ruffles. And they do work, and I've used them. They're kind of a pain, but they do work. But what I have is basically a sewing machine that was modified so that this is all it does. It's like the entire sewing machine, all it does is make ruffles. So it's called a Johnson Ruffler. I'll show it to you for just a second and move the camera over there. Okay, so this is it. It's basically built onto a Singer 15 clone base, and then the modifications were added. Right now, people use them a lot, making like ballerina tutus and things like that. Not so much for every day, but since, you know, there was the opportunity to pick one up, why not? So, you know, this part here, this part here, this is all that ruffler piece. So right now I have it set so it's basically the same ratio. Like 2 yards of fabric will make 1 yard of ruffle. If it's not exact, there is a little bit of give so I can make it work when it comes time to sew it on. But I'll just show you really quick how it works. I'm going to ruffle this edge and then sew it on. Yes, there is a way that you can ruffle and sew it on at the same time, but at this point when I'm troubleshooting the widths and the amount of ruffle, I want to just take it one step at a time. I'm trying to figure a place where you can watch and I can still do my thing, so it's going to be noisy. I'll try to turn the volume down, but it's just a noisy little machine. There we go. Okay, so basically it's, you know, pleating it up and making a little ruffle here. You can adjust the amount that this is going to shove under, so it makes the depth of the ruffles different, and you can adjust the amount of space it takes between them, so, you know, it's a project. But obviously these are not common, so what I would still do is run 2 rows of gathering threads, heavy bobbin thread, and get those, when you're going to come time to put your ruffle on, pull the bobbin thread and it will gather really nicely. Okay, so then get your gathered or ruffled or whatever you choose to do, get your ruffle, and we're just going to match it up at the edge, putting the right side of the ruffle up against the right side of your dress, and hopefully it's gonna have both of the seam allowances matching up together. Hopefully. I'm still working on the ratios of that thing, you know, but if not, it's going to be close. So I'm just going to pin it all together. Once I have it pinned, I'm going to come back with a regular straight stitch machine and sew it on probably at about a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. And I might even go around twice. I haven't figured that out yet. But you want to make sure it's on really, really tight, because if a little girl is running and steps on it, you don't want her ruffle to pull off. Okay, I've got my ruffles sewn on. Here's my seam allowance. But I think what I'm going to do is come back and top stitch like right here, so that my stitching is going to go through the seam allowance, the gathered seam allowance underneath, just one more layer all the way around, and I think that's going to make it lay nicely and also protect this from wanting to rip as easily. Alright, so my first little dress is done. I think it's actually really cute. I really like it. I'm going to try to get a few more made out of this blue check. I need to pre-wash it and everything. But I hope you can see that it's not that difficult, and you can make your own pattern. You can customize it however you want. I think that on the instruction sheet, the picture that they were showing had 1 pocket in the middle. I like 2 personally. You can put decorations on it. The main thing is that it's a nice sturdy fabric, you know, not too heavy. Try to make it cute. You know, these are little girls and everything. You don't want things that are going to fall off easily. You don't want things that are going to rip easily. They say no zippers. They say no ribbon ties, you know. So for more information about this, please look at their website. I'm going to put a link in my description. I'll show the website on the page here. There are a couple other projects that Little Dresses for Africa does. There's little knit shorts for boys that I'm going to tackle next. And then they also have some reusable pads that I might be doing after that. But there's several projects, so if this seems like this is too much work for you, they have a very easy pattern online that you can make out of a pillowcase, you know. Just get some gals together with your pillowcases. They do ask that if you're going to be doing things that you use fabrics that are new or like new. They don't, they have trouble with some legalities if they're used clothing in any way, so try to make sure that that happens. But yeah, I love it. I'm going to go ahead, take a break right now, and probably get that fabric washed, make up a few more before I get it all shipped out. The address where you ship them when you're all done, I'm going to post here, and it'll also be on their website, obviously. And they also say on the website that it costs them about $2 per dress to get them over to their final destination and distributed. And if when you send in your dresses, you could, if you could, include a donation to cover the cost to get them to their final destination and everything, that they appreciate that. So I hope you like this. I'm excited about it. I think that they're very cute, very easy, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.